So how would you feel if you had your home upended, been arrested, and key members of your family unit, shall we say,
Yeah.
arrested, questioned? Like, would you be in the humour to go holidaying, or would you sort of sit there terrorised, waiting for the knock on the door? And
Well, I haven't been in that circumstance just yet, though it may someday come. But look, I think if I was a gangster, maybe I would.
They just carry on regardless, don't they? It's quite extraordinary.
I think it is a strategy as well, is it?
Is it, yeah?
Yeah, like definitely with the John Gotti, they used to describe that, how no matter what, if he was arrested or busted or there was raids, he'd always appear the next morning and walk around the neighbourhood to kind of show off that he's undefeated and unbowed.
Yeah, so a bit of a Kinahan thing as well. They used to always, in particular in the aftermath of Shovel in 2010, they were back out partying in the pubs, telling everyone they were beating the system.
Yeah.
And then they did, which sort of made them more powerful. But we're talking obviously about a gang we could refer to as the Family, who were subject to a major investigation, and they were hacked basically on a thing called the Ghost Network, which the Gardaí did a huge big press conference about, spoke about how they had worked with their Australian counterparts and how they had basically been live hacking this phone system where the Family group were doing all their business, and had been monitoring them over that time, and had also tracked and arrested people that were involved in distributing the phone units to them. So you just would think, oh, I'm goosed, wouldn't you? Now, of course, the DPP file is being prepared for the DPP because they were arrested and released without charge. Some months ago now this happened. But they're just back splashing the cash and off to Ibiza, along with some of the goods and greats of recent times.
Yeah, I mean, there was a large number of arrests. I think it was 11 arrests in total. There was 3 key arrests of what are regarded as the 3 top figures at the top of the Family group. Now, they weren't in Ibiza. One of them, I was told, panicked at the last minute, believed they were under surveillance and decided not to go. And another one, because of criminal charges that are against them, was not able to go. But there was a lot of other people picked up, and a number of them were over in Ibiza. And the gang, the Family...
Are they on social media? Can you follow them, or are they much more? Because the Family have been seen as being a lot more low-key than some of the other gangs that have kind of come up, even though they're at this point the top target for the Garda's Drug and Organised Crime Bureau still within this country. They have not actually migrated internationally. They've remained in the West Dublin area largely, where their stronghold is, but they've made an absolute international fortune when it comes to the money.
No, they are not household names, these people.
Yeah.
They have avoided any of the sort of notoriety that have, in particular, surrounded the Crumlin and Drimna gangs, I suppose, who became household names.
And a lot of the Coolock and Blanchardstown mobs.
This is true, because they've avoided that kind of out-of-control violence, the feuding. They've avoided being, conspicuous consumption to a degree, and certainly have avoided social media. These people, I do believe that some of it is on social media, but it's not out there on social media like we've seen other people. I suppose the real issue is when you talk about the Family, obviously there was the arrests in Ireland, there was follow-up arrests in Spain, where a warehouse that is connected to them, where you had Irish people, but also Spanish natives and people of other nationalities. Basically, a warehouse for a lot of the drugs that were coming back to Ireland. We know the Family had a number of different routes to get drugs in. One of them was coming from this warehouse in Spain, where they were being driven to Ireland in modified cars, basically, and taken on ferries. There was also a number of seizures in recent years of private planes flying into Ireland, particularly with heroin, but also with cocaine, that are linked to the Family gang. They're a kind of a separate network than the broader Kinahan network. Obviously, the Kinahans were associated with this kind of super cartel, and the super cartel really had sort of clients, but the family seemed to have operated away from that structure, even though we do believe over the years they dealt with the Kinahans. So there was a huge amount of law enforcement effort went in across a number of countries.
They lost like 15 million euro worth of cocaine during the raids, cash. Nearly 500,000 in cash.
Yeah, I mean, some of those were raids that were connected with that hack in the months previous.
But it was their
all part
gear.
of that.
Like, it's a lot to lose,
100%.
and it's that sustained effort that comes against them. But still, they're certainly not short of a penny or two.
No.
What is it with Ibiza this summer?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Ibiza, I suppose.
The new Costa, is it?
Well, I don't know. Is it ever? I presume Ibiza. Not that I would know, but I presume Ibiza has never been never gone out of fashion fully, has it?
No, but it is certainly it's actually a posh place to holiday.
Yeah.
And lots of really, really nice resorts in it, as well as, I suppose, it has still got that hangover of that culture.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, that's definitely going on there.
Party clubs and all the rest of it. But, it's one of those islands, and I think that the Kavanagh / Byrne organised crime groups had used almost as a testing place for new drugs. They were always supposed to have distributed them around there. There was an understanding that they had invested in certain clubs and pubs on the island, and that they have a new product and they'll push it out to that sort of willing holiday party crew. But also, we've seen a lot of holidaying, and of course non-criminals as well, like Conor McGregor showed up there on a holiday with
Katie Price.
Katie Price. And who was the other person you said that had shown up on that? So of course he was there, and he was seen and photographed with members of the younger sort of Byrne organised grouping from Dublin, but people he would have known growing up, and almost grew up with some of them. Nathan Biggie Little in particular, a name that is not yet really widely known, but we would have been watching him come up under that Byrne structure. So I'm just going to tell everyone that I was going to say that he said there was someone else, but he wasn't totally sure. So that's been edited as a big blooper.
Yeah.
But anyway, nonetheless, Lee Byrne was also there.
Lee Byrne was there, and obviously there was a couple of Irish football internationals pictured there with them. Troy Parrott, who's a childhood friend of Lee Byrne, and also Evan Ferguson, one of the great hopes of Irish football. But I suppose
they were having a kind of a different sort of a party. Now, the family grouping, who are a little bit sort of older, a lot of them, would have been there for a stag party.
So I suppose, that's normal enough. But I suppose what you'll have to look back on is this hack into the Ghost network occurred basically in March this year, became public. It might have started a number of months before. So we're now into July. There's, 4 or 5 months, and these people are still flying over to Ibiza. And again, the question arises, this is a huge international operation that stretched across a number of countries, where this literally, the guards, from their own words, were able to make a number of seizures of cocaine as a result of the intelligence that was coming in on these phones. They were basically able to see it live, intervene. Now, they didn't have to reveal where they got that information at that point, but they were able to stop seizures, so they know that
they've really described this information and the detail and the evidence against them as being overwhelming. But yet we still await the decision of the DPP to give direction on charges. And bearing in mind that we haven't prosecuted any of these hacks, we ignored EncroChat.
Yeah.
I think there is one case with the DPP, an EncroChat case in Ireland.
Yeah.
And yet we see all these characters that are clearly operating here on this island and into this island getting caught and done on Encro phones across the UK.
Sure, of course. I mean, we've spoken even just in the last week about people connected with Bomber Kavanagh, all caught on mobile, all EncroChat phones. Presumably, they have to be interacting with people in Ireland, because you have to message another EncroChat phone, and that's just one of many. So the Ghost hack, I suppose, was meant to be, because the guards were in there on ground level, because the Irish users of the phone were so significant. We were along with Australia, we were the second highest user of these phones. We know
it was quite bespoke, wasn't it, the Ghost network? Because the family were the biggest users. There was another sort of a Wicklow-based grouping and a couple of others that were other crime groups that were distributing drugs. But also in Australia.
Yeah.
Very strange. And then
But there was a mafia guy in Italy was arrested, and there was various other phones, some in through parts of Asia. But it was basically Australian and Irish primarily. It was bespoke. It was much smaller. It wasn't an app like the EncroChat. You came with the handsets, and there was a guy arrested, described as a tech specialist who distributed the phones in Ireland, but also kept up the upgrade of them, because obviously these things need to be upgraded and updated constantly. So the guards, I think, believed that, because this has become the primary tool in putting criminals behind bars, hasn't it? The hacks of these encrypted networks. If you look across Europe, but certainly in the UK, but across all countries, this has become one of the biggest ways that people have been put behind bars. It's been the gangland story of the decade, really.
In more recent years, and these phones were being used for a decade at least before that, at which point criminals were able to do their business as if they were not doing any criminal enterprise at all, because they were so confident they were able to talk on the phones. They have to be able to use phones or technology because they're not living in the same country as they're dealing in.
Yeah.
You know, they're wholesaling. Obviously, the cocaine has to be transported across the world. It can only be grown in the Andes, the coca leaves. Other drugs can be produced closer to home, cannabis and, you know, these pharmaceutical drugs made in factories. I think we're more and more going to be seeing they will be produced on home soil to cut out the transport costs altogether. But nonetheless, if you're trying to import a big shipment of cocaine from South America across the globe and have your logistics guys and everything, you need to be on the phone. You need to be making those bookings and paying people and whatnot.
Certainly, and the phones initially transformed the business of organised crime because it allowed these organisations to become transnational groupings really quickly. It also allowed this high degree of specialisation, because certain people would take charge of certain aspects of crime, for example, financial aspects or logistical aspects. And all those safe digital communications allowed that to happen. And therefore, that was part of the boom.
And even opened up a new employ for people working in organised crime. You and Eamon were only talking recently about Kieran Sam O'Sullivan, who essentially kind of moved into a position of being
a broker for these phones.
For the phones.
Yeah, so this is what happens. It's happened across. It's the same thing that's happened across all of the world with the rise of the internet. You know, you have Deliveroo becomes, instead of having individual restaurants hiring delivery people to deliver stuff, you have somebody takes charge of just being a delivery service. They don't create food and they become Deliveroo or Airbnb or whatever. So that happened in organised crime as well, and that was facilitated totally by these encrypted devices. Then the police forces strike back, and they hack into these, and it becomes the gangland story of the decade, because so many of them are put behind bars, and this happens across Europe, very much in the UK.
I'm smiling because I'm just thinking about the recent MV Matthews sentencing that I attended, and of course they just didn't bother they didn't bother having even kind of encrypted phones. They just put the signal. I mean, in a way, I wonder, are they starting to think you'd be better nearly on
what's the difference?
On your old Nokias and throw them out?
Well, however, they still needed to communicate digitally,
didn't they? Yeah.
And so that also, you know, there was guys there who've pled guilty, been sentenced now. If they hadn't been caught on the phones, look, nothing is surer than a couple of them would say, I just thought I was just on the ship. I didn't have a clue what was there. The fact is they were caught by the digital communication. But again, instead of, they had a guy on board, but it was also being directed directly from Dubai, and it was directed by digital communications from Dubai. So that's people have ended up in prison because of those. But the problem or the issue for Ireland has been that none of our we haven't brought these cases, and this family case was hoped to be, certainly investigators, it is believed, thought that this was going to break that.
Or that it should. I mean, I think it is generally believed that the evidence is so overwhelming found on these phones, and the work behind this investigation, and the fact that the family are the number one targets. They have grown to such wealth and proportion since the demise of the Kinahan organisation. They're the ones to take out or to start to dismantle. So, you know, the decision hasn't been yet made, but it is still hoped that the DPP will show a bit of bravery in this matter and go for a first case, because you've got to try something.
You've got to try something, or else you're going to, you're going to just cut off one route. And as you don't, the longer
you're also going to really open the doors of Ireland to anybody who wants to come in and to carry out some international drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Because you're showing that you don't have the system that's able to tackle it in the same way other countries have.
Yeah.
And are willing to.
And also, look, the DPP, the people were arrested, released without charge, and files are with the DPP. There's no doubt about that.
It's hard to understand, because really the law, they say criminal law, isn't much different to the UK. I mean, we're kind of based on...
Well, it's a common law system. So
yeah.
We have like the UK and the US, even though there's huge variations, but we're basically a common law system. So it's different than the continent, which is just a totally different tradition. So, I mean, there is issues, of course, with the laws of using intercepted communications. They exist in all countries. There are laws protecting privacy.
Your favourite data protection?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, there are laws, but I mean...
Yeah, but you see always, not always, but a lot of the time in the courts, that the common interest subsedes that sometimes.
It does. If you're investigating very serious crimes, issues, for example, to do with, CCTV, how it's harvested by the state, that won't be supersede the necessity of investigating a murder inquiry, for example. So I suppose this story is that a number of these guys in the family flew off to Ibiza is only a story in that context, that we had this major international policing operation costing whatever amount, and a few months down the line,
they're partying away.
Yeah,
while we await.
While we await.
Yeah. Okay, Niall, thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.